it is that time of winter when it's cold and dark, and Sheila just sent a note out saying it looks like a good aurora night. And so I don't know if anybody's tempted to go out, but there it is. So I'm just going to go over a couple of things that I use fairly often, and it's for a lot of different purposes. Some of it is planetarium software, and there's some really good stuff out there that's free. And in fact, everything I'm going to talk about is free. But I spend a lot of time looking on news as it comes along as well, partly because I was doing or still am doing the pages for the journal on new discoveries and things like that. I've included image processing software because a couple of fairly popular packages have recently become free, and then there's just stuff you might like to tag in on somewhere along the way that interesting technical stuff. In particular, I'm going to talk about something that you hardly ever think about, which is threads that you have to encounter when you're trying to put things together on a telescope. Most of the planetarium software I'm talking about is desktop based and primarily a Windows platform, but in fact, once you go into them, you find that there's very few that are limited to just Windows, and some of them will work on any platform, or there are versions of them that'll work on any platform, including cell phones of various manufacturer and all the rest of it, even Linux systems. And many of these software programs, if you're hooked into a computer connected to a telescope, will also control the telescope for you. So it's a lot of ways to just play with the sky. But the main reason I want to show these things is on a cloudy night or on a cold night, they're just nice ways to keep track of what's happening in the sky and what might be coming up. And the three I like most are these carte du ciel, or under its French name, but it's called Sky Chart. If you want to look it up on the web under either of those names, and Celestia and Stellarium. And I think you've all heard and seen some displays from those ones. I probably use carte du ciel most, but I also have some commercial programs that I use as well. They're all pretty much the same. I like carte because it's, first of all, it's quick. And secondly, you're not imbibed with a whole bunch of fancy graphics. It's just there and it does the job. And so it's kind of a basic package, but it makes it pretty easy when you want, especially when you're out at night in the cold, if you're hooked up behind your telescope and you happen to have a computer running. It's a good quick way to see what's in the sky around you. Celestia, on the other hand, is kind of a completely different program. You can use it to look at tonight's sky, but it's really built for exploring the solar system while sitting in your chair. And so you can zoom around all over the world and all over the worlds and look at things from different angles and stuff like that. You can hook yourself onto a comet and ride that comet through the solar system. I use it sometimes to simulate solar eclipses. So one thing to look at them from a satellite, but the last eclipse, I had a look at it from behind the Earth so that the sun was on the other side, and just adjusted it so I could essentially see past the Earth to watch the eclipse. Yeah, but I could have just as easily swung around to the other side of the Earth and watched the shadow move across the Earth itself. And Stellarium comes somewhere in the middle. It's a lot like carte du ciel for the display purposes, in that it's a standard planetarium program, but it's a lot richer in the backgrounds that it offers to you and things like that. I have it running here. I'm going to just try and switch over to it. Here we have Stellarium showing tonight's point of view, and it's very easy to navigate it by just moving around. So we see Jupiter down there. setting in the west, the moon, of course, up, and Orion rising up. I turned it to the south, so
Can't see that.
okay. Well, Judy tells me you can't see it, so I guess we're gonna have to let go of that. And we'll go back here. Limitations here. So there's a good argument to be made for having at least two of these: Celestia for fun and games, Stellarium for a nice visual appearance, and Carte du Ciel if you want to use it for serious work where time and minimal effort and visibility is what you're after. Some of the other ones you want, Halo Northern Sky, are called HN Sky. It's also similar, very similar to Carte du Ciel, and also free. And a relatively new one that I've been looking at called WinStars 3. I haven't explored it enough to find out all its versions, and there is a more capable version that you can purchase for a small amount of money. Basically, if you want to find out what's going on all of these programs, you can go into the listing of them in the Sky and Telescope address that I've got there on the left-hand side. But you can see that HN Sky has got embedded images, which all of these programs will do, providing you have a source of these images. So I could say you could pick up Halo Northern Sky or Carte du Ciel and have pretty much the same capabilities. Astronomy news is big with me, and of course we can all go to Sky and Telescope and Astronomy magazine, but you might want to take a look at Astronomy Now, which is a British magazine and which has the same kind of website and that Sky and Telescope has. It gives you a little different focus because they often carry the same stories, but they also have different ones. And you can go down to Australian Sky and Telescope, which is a completely different edition of Sky and Telescope compared to the one that we get in America here. And the RASC, of course, is also a good source for astronomy news. But these are selected news stories, and what happens with them is that you get what the editors decide is most important, which if you can look up at the Sky and Telescope image that I've got here, Comet Leonard, and we all know how well they do in presentation and news, but here's what some of the pages are on the other ones to give you an idea, if you can see the graphics well enough, on some of the subjects that they might want to cover. Now, of course, you have to buy a subscription to get deep into them, but you can read their main news stories without having that subscription. Phys.org is really a science news accumulator, and it just takes the press releases issued by agencies and by universities, and it just puts them up. And they're not just astronomy. It can be anything in physics, in medicine, in biology, whatever comes along, but you can filter it so it's just the astronomy stuff you're looking at. Those stories that you get there are fairly short, and they're just what the universities put out, and sometimes they're horribly written and it's unclear what's happening. But for astronomy stuff, it's mostly pretty good. One that you might not know about is one called Mars Daily, and I'm going to go over to Mars Daily right now. So here's what phys.org looks like, and you can see there's a switch up at the top that's good for astronomy, or for astronomy and space. Actually, you can pull that out. And let me see if I can find me. I don't have a highlighter here, but anyway, they get a couple insulation, then all the stories unfold down under them, and they're listed fairly concisely. Mars Daily over here has got just stories about Mars, but if you look up here, we have Space Daily, Space War, GPS Daily, Saturn Daily. This is actually an interesting little place because every time you go in and out of one of these little tabs here, you come back, there's different ones, and you'll get Agro Daily and you'll get China Daily, and you get some really interesting in-depth stories. I mean, it sounds now that nothing's happening on Mars, but when you go to Mars Daily, you'll find that in fact, things are happening day by day and they report on it. And then you can flip over to Saturn Daily. Well, Saturn Daily doesn't cover just Saturn. It covers all the giant planets. You're just likely to find the latest news from the spacecraft that are in orbit around Jupiter. So it's a site that's well worth exploring. You can see the types of, if you're interested in what's happening in conflict, well, you get Space War with an update on all the latest weapon systems. And so you can really have fun exploring that one. One I really like is Weekly Information of Bright Comets. And that one is here. This is one I use every time I do a what's new or what's up to keep up with the comets. And I showed you the graphs many times on that one. Space.com is one I like too. It is similar to phys.org, except it doesn't cover as many stories. But what it does is it writes a background.
Well, yeah.
So anyway, in space. Okay, somebody's left their mic on.
It's my astronomy meeting.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm going out anyway.
Anyway, you could try that one out. That's a good one. I might mention there's a fellow on YouTube called Scott Manley who gets some very interesting blogs about spacecraft and about the engineering. He seems to know his stuff pretty nicely. If you want to go into technical aspects, the Lonely Speck has a lot of information on basic and not so basic photography, and Al Dyer is also very good too. And if you feel like you want a degree in astronomy, well, you can go whole hog and get into the Open University, which is a legitimate and well-respected British university. And you can get yourself a bachelor's degree or even go into a master's, I think. But you won't do that with a visit for 1 week. It's going to take you a year or more to get through all of the material that they offer. So a Lonely Speck, for instance, you have to be a little bit careful with some of the websites that you get into. They get into the real technical aspects of photography, because there are some who have favorite and not well accepted techniques of handling the way you enhance your photography. But since this is really a beginner's type of presentation here, you're probably better off with starting with sites that do talk about the panoramas and like the Milky Way and so on, because that's the stuff that's easy to do. Something if you can anchor your camera down on the top of a car, you don't even really need a telescope or a tripod, although that would help. Al Dyer has lots of stuff for sale, but he also has lots of stuff that you can pick up on his hints. He's not really big on deep sky photography enhancement and that sort of thing, although he does it, but he's really good on his tips for wide angle stuff and lens tests and reports on them. You see him in Sky and Telescope quite often. But that stuff's also posted on his webpage and on his Facebook account. So you can get some, you start looking for a lens. The last one I looked at was a fisheye lens that was $150 or something like that, which is a very interesting price for a lens that he thought was pretty decent. I would suggest you have a look at Open University, not because you might want a math or physics and astronomy degree, but it'll give you some idea of the huge range of subjects that you would have to study if you were going to get that kind of a degree, because you're certainly going to be into math and physics as well as astronomy in a site like that. Of course, you'll get mostly the prospectus for the course. You won't get the material itself. But if you really want, you can go on over to MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and they have an enormous catalog of free online courses that you can take. But once again, you're into many years of work if you want to put that stuff together into some kind of a degree program. There are also universities in Australia that offer this as well, and you'll see them advertised in Sky and Telescope. So you can go all the way from learning how to plunk your camera down to take a Milky Way picture to walking out the door with a certificate under your arm if you wanted to. This was something that I've been looking at fairly often because I'm putting together some attachments to my C8 that get a little bit complicated with 54 millimeter threads and 48 millimeter threads. You know, we tend to hook a camera to a telescope through a T thread, but there are actually several kinds of T threads, and you get people like Botter who make one kind of T thread, and they make a rather sloppy one so that it fits everybody else's T threads. And so a Celestron T thread might be quite different, or a little different from an Orion telescope T thread, and they don't all fit as smoothly with each other. And then there's an enormous number of them. So if you really wanted to find out about astronomy threads in far more detail, then you can go to Agena Astro's site, but it might scare you a little bit to find out just how many things you're up against if you start hooking together telescopes and eyepieces and cameras, and with the vast number of connectors that they have. If you want to try image processing, both Nebulosity and Images Plus are now free. You can go to their websites and they will give you an activation code for it. Formerly, Images Plus, when it was a pay-for program, was around $200, and Images Plus was much cheaper than that. And the fellow who developed it has actually now dumped it into the public domain along with the source code. So if anybody wanted to pick it up and improve it, there you go. But it's a program which you find a lot of people using because it can be relatively simple for processing an image, or even making a simple image look a little better, a little more snappy. Something simple you may have done with a Milky Way or Aurora or something like that. So again, it's opening a real big window for you when you go to sophisticated programs like this that are free. And who knows, you might end up with PixInsight, which will take a fair bit of money and an enormous amount of your time. And only those with both tend to work with it. Last of all, I'd like to point out about cloudynights.com, where you can entertain yourself with stuff you want to know or stuff you don't want to know. You can just go in and cruise around in their pages and look at some of the subjects that they want to discuss. You can see some of them here. There's a review of a 140 millimeter telescope on the top here. It tells you how to fix the Daub mount, talks to you about somebody's dome that they've got, and so on and so forth. And you can log in and get an account with them and add in your own communications and ask your own questions. I do that occasionally when I need some advice or somebody else's experience on something. So Cloudy Nights is probably something that everybody who's interested in astronomy and has a little bit of a desire to go out and review this or look over the sky or use a telescope, someplace where you can get information on what other people have done. So that's where I'm going to leave it. I hope those of you who are experienced on this stuff have found a few things that look a little bit interesting. I have a feeling that Mars.com and its associated sites is probably going to be something that appeals to many of you. And now I will see if I can give back control of this thing to, so far it wants to tell me I can't. Oh, here we go. There, we'll stop share. There we go. So enjoy playing with the world of the internet, and remember, if you type in a search command, you'll get hundreds more of these things along the way. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jay. What I'm going to do, there was a couple of things in the chat, Jay, while you were talking. I just want to scroll back. And for those that said it, Happy New Year to everyone. And also, comment was made that Sky Safari was great for telescope control too, in case some people weren't paying attention to their, or didn't notice this chat. Stellarium on a phone is great to pick out constellation if you're not sure what it is. And I think Michelle mentioned about Gong, gong.nso.edu, and had a question. What was the comment one? Jay, did you have one on comments?
Yeah, I'm looking. Sky Safari is very similar to forgotten anyway, one of the commercial programs, and you can upgrade it. And I
You
like
had
it.
You had
but
one
it-
on comments next to the Mars one. I wanted the link. If you could throw it in there, thanks.
Which link is that?
It was on your slide. I think you had 3 panels, and on the right was Mars, and on the middle was one for comets.
Oh yeah, just type in current comments and you'll find it.
Okay.
It's a Japanese site. It's a little bit crude in terms of what they can offer, but it sure got all the information you need.
Got it. Thanks.
Jay, do you want to describe about Gong?
Gong is a solar experiment too, but somebody else mentioned that one, not me.
Yeah, I do solar, and sometimes I don't want to take all my equipment off. There's nothing on the sun, so I use Gong. I find the location close to where I am, and if there's something interesting, then I take out my solar equipment. It's handy for that.
Sheila asked about programs for ISS transit. Yes, they are there.
There used to be CalSky, but it doesn't exist anymore, and haven't found anything comparable.
Has it gone out of business? That's too bad, isn't it? But I suspect, I know that Jerry probably can answer that question better than I can, because I know he comes out sometimes with
I
prediction.
think ISS Transit Finder.
Yeah, but yeah, Scott, I'm guessing that ISS passage location Winnipeg or something like that would immediately get you a selection of choices. A lot of what you have to do is be a little selective on the search terms that you put in and try and break it down, because you can go to some amazing, totally irrelevant pages if you, it's surprising how many hits you'll get that aren't astronomy if you type in something like galaxy, for instance. And I know if I type in eclipse, I end up with a lot of car advertisements. So if you don't control your cookies in your page, you're going to end up with those for weeks afterwards. So it seems like there are no reserved terms in astronomy.
There we go. Looks like another person posted that. Oh yeah, it was on the, if we look at last month's newsletter, there's a link on there for the comment page as well. So another good reason to read the newsletter. A couple more comments. Heavens Above is another one. And then the Soho solar site shows the sun in white light is another comment that was in the, from Stan in there.
Yeah, Murray mentions Heavens Above, which has been the go-to site for satellite information for a long time. I certainly wouldn't want to type in Starlink in it, though.
All right, well, that brings us to 7:30, which is the start of our business meeting. And tonight it is mostly a business meeting. So again, thank you very much, Jay, for your talking and sharing resources for all the new beginners, for anyone actually. There's lots of good information there you showed for all levels of membership in the center here. So in a minute, I'll talk a little bit more about a few things, but just going over basically the outline. The next section is going to be, first there will be a discussion period, and then we'll look at going into a vote on the bylaws as presented. But first and foremost, it's going to be, there's time for discussion, and I'll go into that in detail in a moment, followed by the AGM. If there's time, because just so people know, currently there's 52 people. If all 52 people wanted to speak and use the 3 minutes, we wouldn't have time for our what's up or main presentation. So please understand that those things would be cut from the agenda tonight for what's presented here as an agenda, so that to allow time for everyone to speak towards the bylaws. The one thing I will do is save 20 minutes to 30 minutes for the AGM, because that is, regardless, the AGM needs to happen. And it's the elections primarily are the one thing that does need to happen at this meeting. So just so everybody understands how I plan to manage that. I'm just checking the chat again here, sorry. Okay. And that's kind of how it's going to go. But we do have a main presentation and what's up, should we have time for those later this evening. All right. So we're not actually at the vote. So I'm going to stop sharing for a minute. Hopefully. There you go. And just want to speak a little bit first. So just again, good evening, everyone. As I said, the next piece of business is going to deal with the draft bylaws that have been in production for almost over a year. The draft bylaws are there, and what I want to do is, in a moment, I'm going to provide a little bit of context to how we got to this position, to this point in time. And the big thing is for everyone to speak. If you want to speak, the only thing we ask is that people understand that to speak to the motion, and you need to be a member in good standing. And a member in good standing is quite simple. The definition is, even if we have to use the national one, even if we use the national one, it's basically your membership's paid up. And there is a 2-month grace period. So if you're in the 2-month grace period, you would still be considered a member in good standing. So just so people know context. I'm not going to ask you to say you are a member in good standing. You know, I believe in treating people as adults, and that's what we are. So opportunity to speak. And when you're speaking, I'm going to moderate this. It's for or against the bylaws. We're not going to talk about anything else that could be strategic plan, corporation, none of that. It is strictly meant to provide people 3 minutes to talk for or against the bylaws. If for some reason you go off topic, I will interject. And hopefully that's enough, and then you could continue to discuss for or against the bylaws, the draft bylaws, sorry. And you get to speak once. Again, we have 51 people on there. If 51 people do, that's 153 minutes. At the end, I'll make whatever comments I think that we need to be. And please stay on topic as I'm moderating it. So a little bit of history. I'm sorry, somebody's not muted. If there is, like I see 52 there, I do recognize that there may be more than one person at a computer. If that's the case, can you just let me know in the chat, because Zoom's difficult to manage, that there's another person in the chat so that we understand that. And same as if you want to speak, put your name in the chat, and I can kind of use that as a way for me to follow down who's going to speak. And it's just going to make it easier for me. I can't see all 52 of you at once, so I can't see a hand go up. I can't see the emoji or whatever. So I'll do the best I can. So what happened is we had our elections last year, and we sat down, and I'm the kind of person that's always believed in looking and operating with bylaws. I have been doing that and have asked for years for the bylaws, and they were never really produced. And no, there's been some flurry of activity in the last day or two. And I just want to go through some of that. But council took it on, did a lot of research, looked at national and other bylaws and things that would be required and what needed to be in the bylaws. Some copies of old draft bylaws that were found were used to look at, as well as what I would say is generally accepted practices by the center, certainly as long as I've been around, you know, involved with council the last 6-7 years, I guess, in one form or another. So all those things were looked at by council, and a committee was put together and they reviewed it and worked on it and came up with the draft bylaws. And there was multiple revisions at council, and the current revision would be considered revision 4, if you like, where it was posted on the website. There was feedback came in, it was reviewed, amendments were made. Again, it happened again. And then last month, there was some suggestions sent in, and they were reviewed again. And again, just like even on council when we were reviewing this, some were incorporated, but not all. So building back to that, there was bylaws presented. I'm just going to read, because the best thing I can do, and I only just got some of this information. So if I miss anything, I'm not trying to misrepresent anything. I just really literally just got this information. So the minutes, these are the minutes from the Winnipeg Center Council RAS, June 21st, 2008. I'm not going to read the whole minutes, so don't anybody panic and I'll leave. I'm looking at the numbers. Okay, we still got 53, so we're doing all right. Item 4 was bylaws, and there they did a line-by-line discussion. So paragraph F of those discussions, 7.3, time required for motions at the AGM. 7 days was regarded as too short, and the consensus opinion was that 15 was more suitable. So 15 days notice is what that group at that time for those draft bylaws determined for notification to the membership. So I just want to point that out. In paragraph M, and again, I am skipping things over, and that's why I'm giving you the paragraph. And again, short notice, so I'm reading what I felt I needed to pull out for tonight's meeting. Scott noted that 2 new committees had to be created to conform with regulations on incorporation. Now, I think that's a spelling error. It says it, but I believe it was meant to be if. That was the goal. These are a finance committee and a nominating committee. The president is an ex officio member of all committees with non-voting privileges. So in 2008, it appears that that council was looking at incorporation as well. Same as when they wrote their bylaws. Bylaws were being written to meet incorporation regulations of the day 2008. The motion was to accept the bylaws as revised, and there was multiple things. As I said, looks like paragraph N would have been that many amendments that they discussed for the meeting. Proposed, Jay, seconded Tim, carried unanimously. The next note says, council applauded the passage of the motion. Jay noted that the Winnipeg Center now had a set of bylaws to work with after nearly a century. So that implies there was no bylaws approved prior to this. Now, again, these bylaws were only approved at the council level, similar to the same process the current council has undertaken. There was a notice go out, a written notice explaining the process, similar to what I've done. Different people write things differently. That's fair. I mean, it's just how it is. They gave a notice, also said that if there's any amendments, the bylaws would not be passed. They would come back and forth. I chose a different process. We've had discussion and done ongoing amendments with the membership, and they've been posted for a long time. Hence, we're at a position to carry it a vote later this evening, potentially, to either pass or not pass them. It is up to the membership. Currently, 51 people on here. And I suspect the reason it keeps changing, if anybody has a glitch in their internet, they can drop off. And I get that. Hopefully I don't. So just like the same thing that we're doing, the previous council did that. However, I've asked several times for people to produce the minutes of the AGM or special meeting, because it could be done either way, a special meeting or an AGM. So technically, when we get to the vote portion, the vote was tabled from a special meeting at the December meeting under our current process. Sorry, there's a lot of paper here. So as I mentioned, the Winnipeg RASC current Center Council undertook this. I'm going to read an email, and again, the purpose is for clarity, so people understand why the current council is where we're at and how we propose those. So this is an email from a member who was on 2008. I'm going to leave the name off. If people ask me to give it, I will. This person was a member of council and a member of the bylaws committee at the time. It's dated April 18th, 2021. First, the main issue. Yes, I object to those bylaws being filed. Context, to try and give you some context. The discussion at the time was to file incorporation papers using a set of bylaws that we thought were ratified at the time. So I'll just start from the beginning again. First, the main issue. Yes, I object to those bylaws being filed because those bylaws were also never approved by the membership. They suffer from the same problems that the newly proposed ones do. They are not the center's bylaws. The center's bylaws are whatever documents precedes the 2008 proposed bylaws that were passed by council but were not approved by the membership. This is not a matter of opinion. This is a legal fact based on the nature of governance and the preceding laws, which required any bylaw changes to be ratified by a majority or maybe 2/3 majority, I can't recall, of the center at an AGM or special meeting. That never happened. So the 2008 document is nothing more than a proposal. We would call a special meeting of the center to ratify them. Although they are so out of date, it would be pointless too. So this was what was given to council and the committee working on bylaws. So please understand that's how we got to where we were, with the understanding that there were no bylaws approved. Sorry, let me rephrase that. No bylaws approved by ratification vote of the membership. Okay. So that's how we got to this point with the draft bylaws. So with that, and got to set that aside. I got a lot of paper because it's an AGM tonight as well. I'm going to set that aside. And what I'm going to do, I just got to get a drink of water, sorry. I see there's lots there, but I had to read. I can't. I'll have to go back and look at the chat. For those of you who are putting things in chat, you'll have to give us a moment, please, to go back and look at that in a second. So the way it's going to work for the 3-minute discussions is we are going to start off with Ed Wright. I'm going to call on Ed Wright. And I'm set up to time for 3 minutes. What I will try to do in the chat, and folks, this is going to get challenging for me because I'm going to be trying to monitor and give people a 30 seconds notice so that they can hopefully, you know, that if they need to wrap up or make their point again, they can. And then at 3 minutes, if you haven't stopped talking, I'll ask you to stop. And if you continue to talk, then Ed will turn off your microphone. And again, there's 51, 52 people and may possibly more that could want to discuss, present their point of view for or against the draft bylaw. So, Ed,
I would like an opportunity to interject. I'm wondering if you're following the proper rules of procedure because
well, we're
bylaws
not,
have been
but-
untabled. Can the bylaws
they have
be
not been untabled yet.
Okay, so there
They
is
have
no bringing
not
it.
been
Okay.
untabled yet. That
I just want to know. So we're not bringing it to a vote until they're
That's
untabled.
correct. I said we're going to have the people are going to have an opportunity to talk to it. And
Okay.
then later I will bring it up. Okay. What I've done to this point is put everything in context, tried to give context to all the membership of how we got here as the current council. And that to this point of the meeting, I have still not received a copy of the minutes of the membership meeting where it shows the bylaws were approved. And as per the documents that were the full documents of the minutes and everything else, and the notice that went out, that had to happen. Okay. And without a record, all I can do is go that it hasn't happened. So give me 1 second to go back and quickly review the chat, folks, because I don't want to miss something if I can help it. Michelle, did I answer your question for now? Or is that
I
just
don't know.
Oh, okay. Well, you're on the list to speak, I guess. So just 1 second.
I basically wrote my thoughts down, so I don't really have a lot to speak about. But I wouldn't
Oh, okay.
mind
Well,
just-
I'm
yeah.
not. Ed goes first, and then just because Ed
Yeah,
was a seconder, and
Fair
then
enough. Fair enough.
that's all
Yeah.
I'm trying to
Okay.
do. So, and then I'm just trying to figure out what. Okay, so I gotta write out a note here. I'm a paper guy, so 1 second here. So Michelle. Scott, I think the problem is that if I was to follow the actual, if that is true, that would very much invalidate the bylaws. Certain that they did not happen at that time that people thought they did, because the bylaws in the notes, the minutes from that June meeting clearly state that it was accepted to be 15 days notice. And then Catherine. And yeah, and yeah, Scott's correct, because one of the Scott went to everyone. That was the problem that was in the bylaws that we were looking at. There was a lot of reference to the Alberta Charity Act and things like that, which really was the clues to the Scott did very good at that, by the way, pointing those things out to us, which was good, because if we had not found those, we probably would have submitted them for incorporation, which would have been a bad thing. So that's just that. 3 minutes. Is there 2 Catherines or 1 Catherine? Sorry. Catherine. No. Okay. So, all right, we'll start off with Ed first. And then I've got, just so people know, I've got Ed, Michelle, Catherine, and Robin. And then I'll just keep monitoring and try to go down as we go. So Ed, sorry, I got to start my timer. 3 minutes, please.
Okay. Thank you, Dennis. Well, I'll keep it short. Probably people are going to be happy that that I'll do that. I just want to speak. And actually, when I was preparing for this, I was actually thinking I could talk about incorporation, so I'm not going to talk about that.
I would shut you down.
Okay, all right. Yes, sir. So yeah, no, short and sweet. And it's as Dennis described it as far as the history of the council. I think the council has been very honest and, done a lot of work with the bylaws. I think that, definitely the bylaws are more than just about incorporation. Absolutely, they are the rules in place for the organization to run. They set out, the mission for the organization. They're really about the governance. So it is important that we have bylaws that are, recent and in force. Even if there were bylaws in force, which we are not able to prove that there are, they would be 13 years out of date. It's high time to bring in rules that reflect the current time, not time from 13 years ago. So we need to bring those up to date. Just continuing on here. I believe that the concerns raised to date may be overblown. I think, yes, there are always occasions where, situations we need to look out for, but I think that those are rare in terms of what's being pointed out in the bylaws. And the other thing to remember is that bylaws in any organization change over time. Typically, every organization will change them once every year or once every 2 years. So in my mind, these bylaws are sufficient. They have been well reviewed. They are sufficient for us to begin our journey, and it's what I see as a journey to modernize your organization, bring us from what I'm looking at as kind of the middle ages of an organization into the 21st century. I think that the organization has a lot of potential. We need good, up-to-date bylaws, and they will be changed over time. They don't need to be perfect today. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Michelle is the next one up to speak, please.
Yeah, okay, so I've gone through all the bylaws, and in general, I think they're actually in quite good shape. And I do agree with Ed that some of the changes can be made down the road, like the minor issues that I see. So it's not a big deal, but I've put them in the chat. I've been on many boards and have been, involved in bylaws and revamping stuff. My only major concern is section 11.3.2, which I have put, you'll see a very lengthy thing placed in the chat. You had also mentioned it in a response document, but there's a contradiction on page 2, note 2. Basically, the council seems to have a right to reject a petition, and the petition, there's no way to appeal it and bring it to the members at large. That's a similar problem with 12.1.2. That being said, I might have some difficulties voting for or against this, especially in light of section 11.3.2, and I may end up abstaining. Also, I don't think that you guys are doing this on purpose, but I get this feeling like I'm having this pushed at me so quickly, without making this decision. So it gives me that kind of vibe. But I believe it's important. I believe we should get it right. And that's my only concern is 11.3.2, which I've detailed there. It needs some kind of amendment added to it, some mechanism to bring any rejected decision from council to the members at large. That's it.
Thank you, Michelle. Catherine is the next one I see on the list.
Hi there, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. Thank you for allowing this speaking time. Although I haven't sat on the RASC board, I've been a member of RASC for a few years now and would like to see changes occur that could move us forward. It's been my experience that creating and implementing bylaws is one of the first and most important steps. I've been fortunate to be on a number of small boards that became larger and adopted and adjusted bylaws over the years to assist with growth and change. I was on the board of a small nonprofit in the early 90s, and I've gone back to that board off and on over the years. I now sit on that board again, and I'm very thankful knowing where we were when I was president in the 90s and what they have accomplished now. I see a much larger membership base, strong bylaws being reviewed and adjusted yearly, increased involvement in the community and the school system with a solid reputation. These bylaws suggested for Manitoba RASC will be work in progress, changing to meet the needs of the organization. They are not written in stone. This is the beginning, being a useful guide for growth and change. They will be adjusted with time to fit our needs, benefiting areas like our Fine Telescope for Kids program, the Glenlee Observatory, public education, and new initiatives. The organization can grow better to serve its members if it doesn't have to check every decision with the membership before it's implemented. The board handles the affairs of the organization. Some trust is necessary. There are a healthy balance of directors with varying opinions. Ideas are presented, fully discussed, rejected, accepted, or adjusted if need be to fit what the board feels is best for the membership. Ideas are not always approved that day. It may involve more research to be tabled for a later date. Bylaws will help guide our board with decision-making as a group. Change is healthy and inevitable over time. What fit our organization and membership even 5 years ago would not necessarily serve us today. The board follows Robert Rules of Order, which has a section on bylaws and their benefit to the organization. It states that bylaws are the most important document of the organization, that bylaws state the rights members have. Bylaws give board decision-making as a group, and very important, bylaws are more likely to prevent anarchy or single decision-making than not having bylaws at all. I do appreciate the board for all of their hard work to create and provide the bylaws to the membership and to answer in detail the questions that we've all had. I support the bylaws presented today and will definitely vote to pass them. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. That was 3 minutes exactly. Robin, Scott, because I see hands up too as well. It's just, if anybody has got hands, I'll have to scroll down and see. Scott, 3 minutes. Oops, sorry, just a second.
Okay. So here is, first of all, the statement that you read out where you didn't want to give the name. So that was me when I was working on the bylaw committee. And that statement did not apply to the bylaws that were just located this week. They applied to a separate set of bylaws, coincidentally also dated 2008, that were written by the Edmonton Centre, that we almost rushed through and filed with the province because people did not take the time to look at the information, and some information came up very, very quickly and we were in a rush. Kind of like this. So I'm sorry I had to use some of my time to defend myself because the finger pointing has already begun. But for the bylaws, I agree with everything that Catherine said, with the exception of the idea that these bylaws are not written in stone. The way that they are written, they basically don't have the council come to the membership for every little decision. They don't come for any decisions. In fact, they don't have to talk to the membership at all, and the membership cannot even call them to account if they choose. Now, frankly, this isn't something that we would think is a big deal, but interestingly, we only lost the 2008 bylaws, which were approved, because the administration after that sort of fell apart. Amazingly enough, all of the people that were on council to write those bylaws all got off council at the same time. Institutional memory disappeared. And we actually had a crisis a year later where we were actually looking at our bylaws, figuring how can we fix this? And we couldn't, because it had the same omission that these bylaws presented today do. It didn't allow the members to call council to account in any way, shape, or form. And that's why, since we're not being allowed to offer amendments and we're not being allowed to do anything else but vote these bylaws up or down, I'm going to have to vote against these bylaws, despite the fact that they are the most important document and we need to have bylaws, even if we are just going to be an astronomy club. We need to have bylaws, but they need to allow members to oversee the council. Council is not in authority over membership. Council is in service to membership. At least that's the way I took it when I was president twice. And I really think that, especially in the last little while, the tone of treatment of members has not been great in some cases, and more
Scott, we're now
importantly,
moving off topic. When you go to there, please stay on topic to the bylaws.
and more importantly, the strategic plan proposes radical changes in what the center may do. Now, I like a lot of those radical changes, but the members get to decide if we do them, not a small group. And without oversight, we give away that ability, just as we're going to start writing grants for large sums of money and incorporating and doing all these other
Scott,
projects.
your time is up, and
Okay.
you moved from bylaws into something totally different, strategic planning, which is not part of this discussion.
I appreciate your respect for democracy and discussion.
Okay, the next person is Judy, please.
Okay. I was on the bylaw committee for the last year. I'm going to vote for these bylaws. As Catherine put it well, and others, bylaws are necessary. I don't think anyone disagrees. They are almost never perfect. In just about every organization I've been in, bylaws are always being amended. They were written by the council, not by a particular person. With an agenda. There was a lot of oversight. There was a lot of postings so that people could review these. We're not really rushing into it. We're trying to make a decision. Even if the bylaw vote fails, should we vote, at least we will know. But I will say that after we finish the meeting, should the bylaws pass, that I would be happy to be on a committee to lead amendments, collect a lot more input, and make amendments such as those by Scott and Michelle have mentioned. And that's all I'm going to say.
Thank you, Judy. Sylvia.
Hi, everybody. Thank you to council for all of the work that you guys put into this. I know that you guys have been working on this so hard, and I actually feel really guilty that I only became aware of the bylaws lately, and not because of your fault, but I didn't come across the notice that the bylaws were created. And I never actually thought I was going to learn about bylaws and even wanted to learn about them. My eyes, I want to peel them off right now. But I'm not sure, what Judy just said gives me peace of mind, that you guys are going to focus on amending these bylaws if we submit, ideas for amendments. Right now, I'm still kind of on the fence on what I'm going to do. I may just abstain because some of the concerns I have are about membership oversight. And although this group of counselors and executive are amazing, and you guys are my friends too, I totally trust everything that you guys do. Once you're done your term, some other council will take over. I don't know who those people will be, and the membership oversight of these current bylaws just doesn't give me that peace of mind. So I'm not still sure what I'm gonna do. But thanks for the time to talk.
Thank you, Sylvia. Sorry, I'm gonna gotta take a second here. Judy and Sylvia. You still have your hands up? Can you put your hands down, Judy and Sylvia, in case we get further discussion so I can keep track? So I don't see anybody else. I'm going to look again, or send me a quick chat. And if I missed you in the chat, send me a new chat saying you want to speak, please. Okay. Sorry, I'm not a super Zoom guy. Robin. Robin, I missed you. I'm sorry. Go ahead. No, you were on there. You should have been after Catherine. My apologies. I had you on the list.
No
Robin,
worries.
please go ahead. 3 minutes.
Just quickly, the findings that I submitted in writing, there was a lot of it was spelling and capitalization and stuff like that. But there were two key points that I really want to bring up that I think are important. First off, in the bylaws as they stand right now, the bylaws contradict themselves in that in one or two places they say that the president has 2 votes. But in another place within the bylaws, it says 1 member, 1 vote. So there is a bit of a contradiction there that needs to be corrected, I think, because it's not clear. And it should be concise and straight through when somebody reads these documents that this is how it is. Typically in an organization, any of the ones that I've been on the boards of, the chairperson is not casting a vote unless it's to break a tie. That's how I've typically run. And in some places within the bylaws, that's kind of the indication, but there's another place where it says that the president has 2 votes. So that, I think, is an issue that needs to be resolved within the document. The other one that kind of bothers me a little bit is that we have, I've lost my train of thought. A couple things that I wanted to mention is that there's in the vice president description, there's nothing there that says that the vice president takes over if the president becomes unavailable, as in deceased or moves away or whatever, and can no longer fulfill their obligations as president. Typically, that's outlined. The concerns with having things right or not right, and amending them later, what's wrong with having that written into the bylaws, that these bylaws will be reviewed on a annual basis or on a biannual basis, given that the president's term is 2 years, perhaps it should be tied to that. And there was another one that I can't think of right now that I had brought up in my written submission, but I can't think of it off the top of my head. Those are points to me that I think need to be addressed before you approve the document, not after. And consequently, it's something that I'll say that I'd probably vote against if it's one way or the other. And that sounds to be what, I'm sorry, I missed the first part of the meeting. So
Yeah, thank you, Robin. Your time is up.
Yeah.
I was going to avoid that, but I'll just explain the one point you brought up about the vote, because there's a lot of bit in the chat. So, and Scott, I think, yeah, Scott's comment is what I'm working on when it comes to that. So just to explain that, the president's still a member. So as a member, I said I'm terrible, I apologize. That person gets a vote as a member. All right. And if there was a tie, that's the mechanism the president position can cast another vote or not vote, or whatever the case may be. And I thank you, Scott, for putting that into the chat. Bylaws can be written, and they are. I've been in many, many different organizations. Some are written, as one person said, that the chair has no vote. But I've also been in lots where they say they get 1 vote. And then there's been, as we've written it here, where it's just a mechanism, should there be a tie, that you could. And there's nothing in the way the bylaw is written, the president is not required to vote. As a member, I can vote, using myself as the example right now, but I'm not required to cast that vote. And of course, if it's a tie vote, the motion would die on the floor at that point under normal observances. Scott, just going to ask Scott, is there anything else you want to add to that particular point to clarify it?
I think
out there. So.
Oh, sorry, am I muted?
No, you're good.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah, a lot of our organizations use Robert's Rules of Order basically as their bylaws with very little adjustment. These bylaws have chosen to override that, but I do think there is that duplication there somewhere. But if we choose to override that, it's totally legit. We just have to spell it out in the bylaw.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Scott. Sorry, yes. Just check notes. Tammy is next.
I will, first of all, I want to thank everyone for their extensive work on these bylaws and everyone that provided comments, and everyone that searched to find the old ones as well. I'd like to just say I will be voting for this. I believe it's more important for us to have a set of bylaws than to continue without an approved set of bylaws. I think it's also important to take into account the things that might be coming down the pike. And I truly appreciate Judy's comments that she's willing to sit on a committee that would look at any changes. And I think that's a good way of doing it, that if possible, we pass these bylaws. And then if there's some additional work that needs to be done, that we can then proceed to have a working subcommittee that looks at those additional changes. I appreciate and totally agree with Catherine's comments from earlier. And as for the last gentleman that said there's no option in the bylaws for the vice president to take over, there actually is. 8.4.1.2 says the vice president will perform the duties of the chair, which is the president, during their absence, illness, or incapacity, or when the chair may request it. So that particular issue is covered off.
Thank you, Tammy. There's a comment in Robin there put in, and I don't mind bringing it up just because there's I think I got a little bit of time. It said he had there, the other concern was to do with appointing from council without a by-election. The way it's set up for the appointing, that is, again, when the bylaws were being written, that's been a bit, certainly as long as I've been here, and I'm not here to argue bylaws were in place or not in place, but it's certainly been the tradition of this center to appoint to fill positions if a volunteer was found for it. And that appointment was only for the remainder of that year, and then they could go for be voted in. Just in case, Robin, you didn't know that part, that there's quite a few people here would know that was more, it's being written into the bylaws, but it really was tradition. And I can't remember, Scott, were they in the 2008 bylaws?
Yeah, council can appoint on a temporary till the end of the term, whatever, because sometimes people would just disappear.
Yeah, without getting into whether they're, it's traditional, it's been there, it's been something recognized. Just so you know, for this center, and again, how this center wants to run and build their bylaws is for this center, right? Another center may want that to be a by-election, which of course becomes a special meeting, advance notice and things like that. So not saying it's bad, it's just a different way of doing it. And my experience, certainly as a member, for however many years I've been a member, it's worked well for the center here, and I think it's a good thing. So I'm trying to avoid talking to specific things, but if somebody doesn't know the history, that's what I'm trying to do, is clarify things like that. And as Scott pointed out, thank you, Scott, it just backs it up. Even in the other bylaws, that's something that was put in there for that, probably for the same reason. It's something that's been done for years, and it's just being embedded so it becomes legal, for lack of a better way to describe it. Michelle, I can't bring you on yet, mostly because I'm trying to stick to everybody gets to speak once for 3 minutes. Just give me a moment here just to go through here. So Michelle, just to be fair to everybody, because that's how I said I was running this, it's not that I don't want people to talk, but for this portion, can you just put in a chat to everybody what you want to say, please? And then I can, I'll take it from there and make that, whether or not I give you time to speak, okay? It still gives you a chance to say what you want to say, and I'll give you a moment if you don't mind. I'll give you time to write it, just, sorry. And I'm not going to play any music. Cliff has said he wants to speak. So Cliff, if you've got 3 minutes, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to thank Council for the tremendous amount of work that they did putting together these bylaws. Second of all, I think it goes without saying that I think everybody agrees that bylaws are absolutely essential. I guess there's been some discussion regarding the potential amendments and the amendments that were put forward and that both Scott and Michelle have talked about. And I think that I'm a lot more comfortable with voting for the bylaws, knowing that we're going to review the amendments, or that the amendments will be reviewed in the near future by a committee. But I guess it would also be nice if those amendments were circulated to the membership and the membership had a chance to vote on them. Would also be a very positive thing, and something that would make that section that Michelle mentioned, which I don't have in front of me right now, much more palatable and much more comfortable for the members at large, so that we know that we have some ability to change things. And so I think that's the major thing, that knowing that this is a living document, knowing that the document is going to change, and knowing that we're going to have a chance to be involved in the change of that document becomes critical as far as I'm concerned. And I'm well under 3 minutes and I'm done.
Thank you. I'm going to give Michelle a chance to speak. She didn't use all her time. So I think it's fair, and mostly because I don't have a big lineup of people. So Michelle, please go ahead.
Yes, as I said before, I've been on a lot of different boards, and I think I like this group and this board to trust enough to vote yes on the bylaws, and that a committee will be formed to address the rest of the concerns that were brought up at this meeting. And I would probably like to sit on that committee as well. That's it. So I've changed my decision to yes. That's thanks to everyone else here with a healthy debate.
Thank you, Michelle. I'm just making a note because you said you'd help with the committee, and if I got volunteers, I will take them.
I still have time left.
Pardon me?
How much time do I have left? Just kidding.
Oh, okay. All right, sorry. Michelle, so I'm gonna crack my neck by going back and forth here. Michelle,
Sorry.
do you mind taking your hand down? Just
Sure.
trying to train my eyes to look for hands. Okay. I'll ask once, is there anyone else wish to speak for or against the draft bylaws? Okay, so the only comment I said, oh, wait, sorry, just saw some public here. Okay, so the only comment I'm going to make then, and I didn't want to make any comments like that to skew the discussion. So, and again, it's not meant to skew the vote either, but I just, because I will be the president unless something dramatic happens. And Judy has made the commitment to be, or make sure we have a bylaw review committee if the bylaws are passed and these amendments are, they're well documented. Requested amendments are done. And I have Michelle as well, who is not up for, to my knowledge, her name's not been put forward, but as a member from the membership, has volunteered to work with us. So I'll make that commitment that that will happen. And we'll look at all these things again. And what I will ask is that when we get to the actual AGM portion, I don't have it on there, but I will ask for somebody to make a motion formally that the council do that if the bylaws are passed. If the bylaws are not passed, then I won't be asking for that, obviously. So, that's my commitment to you as the president. So, and I'm going to check one last time because sometimes those things happen. And the last thing I want to say is one of the reasons I chose this format was it really gives everybody an opportunity in our group of 54 plus people to chat and discuss it. It would have been wonderful if we were all in person, because then you can talk and take a break and then, you know, go and find out all the things that are going on. And unfortunately, under the current COVID situation, we're not able to get together and even over a cup of coffee and really chat things up well. And I have no control over it, but I will apologize for it. So I found the discussion really, really professional, enlightening, and people, what's important to me is that we're engaged and people are engaged. And I really thank you all for that. Regardless of the outcome of the vote, when I call for a vote in a moment on this and we bring it up. Thank you all. I'm a firm believer that people should be able to talk openly about why they think things are different or should be done differently. And this is personal. I think people are forgetting how to do that, to be able to have a conversation and have different opinions, but discuss things and come to some consensus. And I think some of that's happened tonight. And I really appreciate everyone doing that tonight. It's important. And we've demonstrated tonight how that can happen. I believe that. So thank you all for that. I'm going to look at the comments here for a moment. I have another person that's volunteering. What I might do is bring up a whole bunch of other things, see if we get volunteers. Just going to write the name down. It's in there as well. So with that, I'm just going to look through one more time because I want to make sure anybody that wanted to speak gets a chance to speak. And I'm watching my time, and we're doing pretty good. So, all right. So before I actually bring the vote up, if there's more than one person on any of these, so first off, I just want to confirm, Ed, we're going to do this by poll, right?
Yes, I have a poll set up for us.
Okay.
And you should probably state what the deadline is, like what time limit is for people to actually vote.
Okay, so good question. A minute's a lot. Okay, I'm just going to put the timeline out because I'm not overly grid. Certainly the Zoom meetings I'm involved with, we don't vote by poll. So my question to the group, and is anybody, if you think we need more time than 1 minute for the actual time to vote on the poll, can you please either raise your hand or I'll answer some of these other questions in a second. What's the word I'm looking for? I lost my train of thought there. So vote. I was trying to read and think at the same time. Don't ever do that. So we're going to vote by 1 minute. That's what it is. If anybody thinks 1 minute's not long enough, please say just let me know that in the chat, and with the suggested times, because it's not something that's hard and fast by my book. Okay. And I'll get Ed to explain how he set up the poll in a moment for those asking the question about yes or no.
Sure. Yeah. I
All
can do
right.
that.
So these are all good questions. And
Yeah. Okay.
So
If
Ed,
that's
maybe
okay.
explain how the poll works. And then I
Sure.
got to talk about how I want to address it for those if there's more than one person at the computer, because they can only vote once. So.
Okay. So it's pretty straightforward. You will not see the poll right now. I have a poll sort of sitting in the background. When I launch the poll, it will be, the question is on the adoption of the new bylaw for RESC Winnipeg Center. Please select your vote now and whether you are in favor or opposed. And it's just 2 radio switches, so you just pick one or the other. You get a single choice, so it's either in favor or opposed. And it's very straightforward, very easy to do.
Michelle Boyce has asked, does it have an abstention box?
No, it does not. I believe
Okay,
if
so-
somebody wants to abstain, they would just not participate.
Not vote. So, and it would still be recorded. This is how, I'm sorry, this is how I would approach it. And this is only unless I get a different number when people tell me there's more than one at a computer. But right now on my participant screen, it's showing 54 people. So if we had 50 people voted, regardless of which way they voted, I would take that 4 people abstained for whatever reason. If anybody does that make sense? Scott, you have a lot of experience with this. Does that make sense?
It sounds reasonable, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so that's how I would approach it. So, so there'll be one poll come up from the sounds of it, for or against, and then the question I do have, if somebody, sorry, I'll go back to, I've had 2 people ask for 5 minutes. Is the group opposed to leaving the poll up for 5 minutes? Like I said, I'm not tied to a time, but it's.
I don't, you know what, it's my opinion, it's like picking, it's a binary choice. You just hit the button, boom, you're done. So the mechanics of it are very
Right, Ed, but some people may want the 5 minutes to decide. And
Okay.
I'm willing to give that to them
All right.
if the rest of the group feels that's 5 minutes is the time, then I'm okay with that.
Okay.
So Dennis, what I'd suggest is you open it up for the poll and then carry on with other business while the poll is going on, and close it and announce the result later. If it's 5 minutes or whatever, you just carry on with the other business.
Okay, we sure, or maybe we run it like say it's a
Poll
maximum
should
of
be
5
immediate.
Yeah, well, again, though, I understand where some people have mentioned and they explain why. They said, I want a little bit more time to think about it. And I can understand that. You know, some people don't want or cannot, because of their personality type, make a, hit the button immediately. They need a few minutes to make that decision. And I'm comfortable with that. I'm not so sure. Let me just 1 second here. And it's just because I'm looking at agenda. Call to order. Yeah, we could, because if the group's okay, I know it's a bit goofy from a protocol perspective. I could open the AGM and we could at least look at the previous minutes, see where we are at, because if all 54 people have voted, Ed, you see that, don't you? When everybody's voted?
I should be getting results. I wanted to just preface that I haven't had a lot of experience. We did test it out, but that was a month and a half ago. So it should be okay.
Yeah. So if what we'll do is we'll put a maximum of 5 minutes. If everybody voted and all 54 are here, then Ed would know that. And then he could say, I have 54 results in, but probably what it'll do is we'll just leave it open for 5 minutes. I'll set a timer and tell Ed, and then if we want, we can move into the AGM and at least look at the minutes. They're not very long from the previous minute, and review them and accept them if we like. So, and then come back and close out that portion. Is anybody really against doing that? Scott, and yeah, okay, I'm just looking because I know Scott's got a lot of experience, especially on the Zoom stuff here. Okay, so that's what we're gonna do then. But I do need to know if there's more than one person at your computer, I need to know so that you can send me a text that you're going to vote by the way it's going to be. And I'm sorry, it's not 100% secure, but you'd have to send through private chat to Ed, okay, so that your vote gets counted. It's difficult, but it's the only way I could think of where I can try, because sometimes there's two members at the same computer, they both have a voting privilege. So does that make sense? And I need to know, because I need to, like right now I see 54 potential votes. If there's 3 other people, I need to know that, so that 57 is the number we use as the total amount of votes. Everybody following me? Not Michelle, only you're not sending your vote to Ed. It'll be on the poll, because in your case you'll get the poll. It's just that if there's 2 people is there 2 people where you are, Michelle? No. Okay, so you would use the poll, Michelle, and that way it can be it's confidential as well. So
I have a question.
Yeah.
How many people are on the total number, or part of the total number, who are not members? I mean, do we have anybody who's not a member logged in?
Thanks, Cliff. I didn't ask that question. You're right, I should ask that. Is anybody, I'll formally ask the question, is there anybody logged on right now who is not a member? And as I mentioned, member in good standing, and that's defined, your membership dues are paid up, or you're within 60 days of when you should have paid up. So I have one person, and she sent it to everyone, so I can say that. Tara is not a member of the center, so that would mean there's 53 eligible voters. Does that make sense? That's how I see it. Thank you very much for sharing that, Tara, and thank you for being here. Okay, I'm just going to look to make sure there's no hands on my off screen here. So, Wing asked, "Is this vote to be anonymous?" Yes, and that's what we're trying to do with the by using the polling function. So we'll simply know what the results are when. Yeah, the secret is a correct word. Yeah, everybody, we're using a secret vote on this. So it's where we're at. All right. So technically, I'm going to untable the motion from. Got to make sure I use the right month. The December meeting when it was tabled. So the vote right now is I'm calling for a vote. Sorry. So the vote.
Second your motion to untable.
Oh, thank you, Michelle.
And then you have to vote to untable.
Yes, you're correct. Yeah. So Michelle has made the motion to untable it. Do I have a seconder?
No. Okay, fine. I thought you made the motion. I was seconding, but I'll make the motion.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll make the motion.
And then Ed, I think Ed did. So Ed's the seconder. So that brings it back on the floor. We've explained this, the process now.
You have to vote to untable it. Sorry, I'm just.
No, we don't actually table or untable things under Robert's Rules of Order. That someone can move to consider the motion, and we second it, and then it's there for discussion, and we can vote on it.
Thanks,
I guess
Scott.
the rules have changed since I've done it.
Well, they're.
It's a thick book.
I'm going to follow Scott's lead on this. So so we're going to move to consider the motion. I believe is the word terminology that Scott used there. And Ed, you're good with seconding that?
I'm good with seconding it. Yep.
Okay. So what's going to happen now? Just 1 second, please. I'm just going to set my clock up for 5 minutes. So when I see the poll pop up, I'll start my timer. And then give me a few seconds because I'm going to vote. And just so everybody knows, because the bylaw is not ratified, I only have one vote. There is no Dennis coming in afterwards with a second vote. Okay, just so everybody understands that at this point. So I'm going to vote as a member, and the results will be what the results are. And so Ed, can you please, oh, sorry. Okay. Ed, could you please post the poll for the vote? There it is. I'm starting the timer. I've just found out I can't vote because I'm a co-host. So,
Oh, really?
yeah, that's fine. That's fine. I
Yeah, I
will
can take
declare
that
my
away.
vote if I, yeah, well, it's too late now. Don't worry about that. So what I'm going to do
Okay.
then is, while that's going on in the background, I'm going to call the AGM portion of our meeting to order and review the minutes. Sorry, the minutes were circulated. And you know what I did? I don't have them in front of me. All right. Did everyone see the minutes? Basically, one thing I didn't print.
Yeah,
One thing I didn't print off.
Yeah, if you can give me a minute, I can probably put those over to you, Dennis, just in the chat. If you just give me 1 minute, I hope I can do that here.
Actually, are you able to put it on share screen? No, don't. No, that could mess up the poll. Never mind. Sorry.
I know.
I don't know how that stuff. I just thought, oh my God, and then everything disappeared.
You got a loose cannon here.
Yeah, Dennis has got a great idea.
I'm doing my best
Blew
here. Don't shoot the piano player. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, send it over to me, and then because it's short enough, I can read it. Like for those that may not have had time, because I apologize. They went out late. But
yeah, just give me 1 minute.
technology is great, but I don't want to find out this was not, you could do two things in Zoom at the same time. I suspect it wouldn't end well.
Yeah, darn. Okay, I have the document in hand, so to speak.
Are you comfortable reading them? Just reading those, because it's a short one pager.
Yes, yeah, I can do that. You know what, I can probably share my screen here.
I'm a bit nervous about that.
Just give me 1 minute. I'm going to take a screen capture.
You know what? Let's just hold on. It was a good idea. And you know what I'm going to do? Actually, I'm going to read my president's report then, if everybody's okay.
Okay.
There you go. Well, I'm going to do that instead. So again, I'm going to give you this is the president's report. I just want to thank a big thank you to all the members of council for their service to the membership this year. Letting everybody know there were 2 resignations for various reasons, and they were filled by appointments. They focused this past year, the work of the RESC Winnipeg Center was the draft bylaws. There was a discussion about incorporation, work on the strategic plan, operations document draft. Some people would call it, that could be a policy manual. The terminology for what we're going to call it hasn't been finalized. The mission, vision, and values in the strategic plan were developed. Outreach. This is incredible that we actually had some outreach, and this is a big thank you to the volunteers that made this happen. We did outreach to Indigenous groups, to youth groups, outreach at the provincial parks, and there were other outreaches that happened as well. It's incredible that even happened during the COVID. The Spruce Wood Star Party happened. There was meetings out at Glen Lee. We have supported like-minded organizations by purchasing corporate memberships with the Manitoba Museum and Oak Hammock Interpretive Center. Telescopes for Kids, 2 years in a row now. Incredible program. And incredible support from the membership. I cannot say enough about the membership that stepped up and donated to make this program happen. We're exploring a telescope for libraries program. We're exploring a spring star party in St. Malo. We've continued the work of the previous councils to update and improve our social media presence. We've had monthly meetings, regular newsletters. We also work with the U of M as much as possible within the COVID restrictions. We had a barbecue at Glen Lee. And again, just to close off, there was a great many other things that the council and the members did this past year. And I just want to thank all the members who have volunteered to make these and other events possible. So that's the end of my report for the AGM. So that was the 5-minute warning bell on my timer. If everybody's ready, we will let the results be known, please, Ed. And I did not vote, just so people know. I couldn't vote because I was locked in there. So.
And I couldn't either. So
two of
this
us could not vote.
Should share the results here. Now people should see this on their screens.
Okay, so it looks like 40 people voted. Okay, of which that would mean 13 I'm reading this into it, okay, and we already mentioned the challenges of it. 13 abstained or did not choose to vote, so one way or the other. So it looks like it's for those that voted, it was 90% carried. So we will consider that motion carried. So since we're in the AGM, just a reminder, in a minute or two, I will call for, it's not on the agenda, but for any other business, and that's where I would ask that somebody make a motion that council review take all the comments and look at any amendments that may be necessary for the bylaws. So thank you for everyone participating. Ed, now can you share the minutes? Or sorry, before I move on, did anybody have any questions for the president for my report? No? Okay, Ed, if you want to put up the, if you can share your screen with the minutes of the last meeting. And I'll quickly run through them.
1 minute. Sorry, just trying to switch screens here. Here we go. Yes. Okay.
Yes,
this
okay.
is it here.
So the last AGM was held on Friday, January 8th, 2021, beginning at 8 o'clock as part of the regular monthly virtual membership meeting, president being present as chair. Council attendees and absentees attending was Brian Stack, Abdul Amani, Ed Wright, Brendan Petrusett, Karen Anderson, Dennis Lyons, and Gord Tulloch. Absent was Sam Griesbeck and Bill Crosney. Order of business was president's report for 2020 was given by Brian Stack. Treasurer's financial report was for 2020 was given by Abdul Amani. Elections for 2021 council. The elections for the council were led by Brendan Petrusett. There was no nominations from the floor. So the following members were elected to the 2021 council positions as follows: President Dennis Lyons, Vice President Gord Tulloch, Treasurer Abdul Amani, Secretary Ed Wright, Councillor Judy Anderson, Councillor Scott Young, Councillor Michelle Paquette, Councillor Tara Gents, Councillor Andrew McCaskill, and the following positions carry forward automatically from 2020 was past President Brian Stash and Councillor Bill Crosney. Future action items not applicable. AGM portion of the meeting was adjourned at 8:30. Are there any errors or omissions in the minutes from the last AGM? So I've seen this done two ways. The way I've usually run a meeting is if there's no errors or omissions, then the minutes are accepted as presented. Does anybody disagree with that? Okay, so then the minutes are accepted. I'm just going to share my screen and try to get my slides up again. Ooh. All right. So, Abdul, are you on there?
Yes, I am here. Yeah, I am here.
So I have the slide up for the financials. If you would like to please present that. And then Michelle, I see your hands up. I'll come back to you in a moment. I'll just let Abdul make his presentation.
Yeah. Like just a quick review on the finance for this year. The revenue was a little bit up from previous year to 4,461. This including or like 4,537. Most of it came from the membership fees. We had increase in the membership over the last year. Sales of observer calendar discount for few remaining sales of 2021 calendars, so it's not a big amount. The other amount was put in the year earlier, like if you see like about 1,300. The expenditure were about $4,729. Most of them goes to Glen Lee expenses, meetings, and buying publications of 2021 like calendars, promotional items, and membership fees for Manitoba Museum and Okhamo Marsh. The asset haven't changed much. The Glen Lee Observatory and plus about $3,000 from the GIC account. In total, we lost about $193 for this year. This just because of the additional expenses of telescope for kids, memberships for Manitoba Museum, and other minor expenses. Other than that, year over year, we are doing very good actually. And that's sum up this like sum up my financial report for 2021. Any questions?
I see Abdul, just so Michelle Boyce has her hand up first, and then I see Russell Brown. If this is
Okay.
working right, I think if they put their hand up, it goes to the top of my list, which makes it easier for me. But I'll double check in a second. But Michelle, would you mind going first, please?
Just out of curiosity, does the donations include donations in our review that we send to the Winnipeg Center? Because I know I've sent donations each year and I don't see that allocated for here.
The donation usually comes into the membership fees where there is a small line and they mention it like as a donation. Most of the time they don't really mention it if the amount is small, but if the amount is over $100, they mention this donation and it comes to the membership fees.
Well, no, I mean, I send donations specifically to the RSC Center, and you're telling me they're not showing up, if this is correct. I hope that's not the case.
Michelle, it could be. This has been raised at National Council recently. If you don't mind, if you don't have to necessarily give me a dollar figure, if you can tell me the times you've submitted, we'll go back and make sure it wasn't hidden somewhere to National, because another center has complained about something very similar to this, that the donations are going in, but National's not redistributing them back to the councils, or to the centers, sorry. I don't know whether it's valid or not, but you've given me validated something that I just saw yesterday on the National Council list.
Yeah, my donations are not great. They're small, but they're $10 to $25. And the last one was 25, and they didn't even charge me. It didn't show up.
Yeah.
So I sent an email.
Yeah.
So the
Can I say something?
What-
Like I can go back, like if you give me the date as Dennis mentioned, I can go back to the reports and see if the donation showed up in our center or not. But usually it will go toward membership fees.
So Michelle, what I'm gonna do is later, I'll probably not this weekend. I got a bunch of things I gotta do at work. I will reach out, or at the very least, can you send me an email just on this to tweak me?
Yeah,
And
and in
that
fact-
way I can follow up with you a little bit, because there's two streams here. If you're looking for a charitable donation, we may never see that money. But if you're donating it back to the club, then it should be going. There's some
Yeah, that's
nuances
what I
going
do,
on that
yeah.
I'm not entirely clued into. Okay, so
I have the documents. I'll get back to you.
yeah, if you don't mind, because I would like anybody that donates any money to our center, we want to see it. Okay, and Russell is next, please.
Yeah, mine was similar to what Michelle raised. I donated to the telescope for kids through the GoFundMe that was posted. So wasn't sure if that was tallied in the report. Because I know that there were other donations through the GoFundMe as well. I believe anyway. Just wondering if those are in the membership fees as well, or if they don't even show up on this report.
Russell, that probably won't show up until the next meeting, because the final report for accounting literally just was completed tonight. So technically it's in this year. So I know the person that's taking care of that's on this meeting, so we'll just be able to make sure that it's in there. I don't know if but we want to make sure it's accounted for in that. And again, because
Yeah, I just saw that the same thing that Michelle saw, like no donations. So I was wondering where it was tallied there. That's all.
Yeah. So and again, thank you for being donators and supporting the programs. Mike Caracas.
Hi there. Thanks, Dennis. Just looking at under expenditures, the meetings, notice that the expenditures are certainly going up through the years, and $1,184, and we're really meeting virtually. So how did that number, I wonder if Abdul can explain how that number came about?
Yeah, I will explain it. Like this, the 1184. This include a fee for the St. John's College. Usually, every year we pay them like $500 member kind of award given to something. So they give us in response, or they give us the right to use their meeting rooms. This year, this $500 or that donation to the St. John College came a little bit late. It came sometime around April 2021, and that's why it shows up higher than the actual Zoom meetings. So in 2020, the number here 746 was only Zoom meetings. The 1184 is a Zoom meeting plus the $500. So if you deduct the $500 from the 1100, you will get an amount close to 670 or 680 probably.
Thanks, Abdul. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions on the financial report?
Yeah, one more for me. Sorry.
No, that's okay. We're doing great. Thank you.
Just looking at the report. So under the assets, just wondering what the club has currently in the bank, because that's not really clearly shown here. Is that under the current asset?
Yeah, under the current asset, this is what the actually in the bank. This
Okay, so that's not physical assets as well.
No. This is just money in the bank, and out of the 19,782, there are 3,000 RGIC funds.
Okay.
Do you want to explain what the $25,000 is, please, as well, Abdul?
This is it came from previous balances, most likely from the Glen Lee asset or the equipment we have within Glen Lee and and Lunar Scope program. The numbers fluctuate a little bit up and down depending on what we have. But most of the items we have from the Lunar program are actually donated. So we don't know the exact real value. So I carry over this number from year to year. We should, in the future, we should focus more on this and see what actual value we have.
So just to add to that, so that the cash we have is the 19,782 and 22 cents.
Yes.
Scott will be the next to speak. And
Yes.
We began down that road, and now with the bylaws approved, there will be a financial committee. And one of the tasks that the last year's council talked about was one, getting an accurate value on the what's listed there as long-term assets, which is like the telescopes at Glenlee and things.
Yep.
For a couple of reasons. One is to make sure we're not overpaying on insurance, or we have the right insurance, as well as to know where we're starting from as far as and to be able to show that in businesses those long-term assets would normally be written down. So it looks a bit, if you're a business person, to see the same number there year to year would seem strange. Okay.
I also would like. Yeah. Sorry.
So go ahead, Abdul, and then
I would like just to mention to the membership that I would like to have some more volunteers from the membership floor where they have more experience in the finance, to step up and maybe give advice where we should go and how to handle this matter, especially if we are incorporated in the future, or went to a non-profit organization. Myself, I don't, and this is just a basic. I've been the treasurer for this club for about 3 or 4 years now. The accounting so far we have is really very basic, but if we are incorporated in the future, I have no actual experience or substantial experience with the details of the finance of these changes.
Thanks, Abdul. Scott's been waiting patiently.
Yeah.
No, sorry, I put my hand down. I just wasn't able to find the lower my hand button.
But I'm not the only one. Thank you, Scott. Just looking at the notes in there, as I mentioned, we hope to have a financial committee, so a proper inventory and valuation of assets, and depending on the type of assets, to be able to show depreciation is one of the goals. So that was recognized that needed. It was also mentioned too that this year we did adjust our insurance down, because when we looked at the assets, when the insurance policy was probably put in place, that was probably correct, but they certainly did not have that value at today's dollar, even for replacement value, because as we know, like things like scopes and that have certainly become a lot more affordable. Maybe not available right now, but affordable. There's a thank you in there, Abdul, for your work. Thank you for the nice comments there, Scott. And then, yes, Gord's just confirming. I thought it was, I couldn't remember exactly, but inventory was done this year, and it was to really make sure we've got the right insurance in place. Again, if we're paying double what we should be, then that money doesn't need to, that should stay in with the center for use in other areas. So Ken's hand is up. Go ahead, Ken.
Hi, Dennis. You can hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. This is just a real simple question. Is there a cost for the Zoom license to be able to do this?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so that's an additional cost for meetings as well then. Okay, fair enough.
That's correct. Yeah, because to have a Zoom account, RAS Center, the council decided to have our own account so we could have meetings like this, or if there's committees, the subcommittees could have meetings, and then you're not restricted to timelines and stuff.
Yep, makes perfect sense. I'm just thinking that's an additional expense for the meetings as well. That's all.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Are there any other questions?
I'm just wondering, Dennis, if I can just interject there. I think there,
Sure, Ed.
if you don't mind, just a snippet from what's happened on council over the last little while. There has been some reflection in this meeting about expenses and expense containment, which is really good. I just want to mention that that is absolutely being looked at by council. We were able to take a less expensive version of the Zoom license, so that was great. We also reviewed the insurance and found that we were overinsured, so we reduced the insurance down to something that's more palatable as far as what we're able to afford. And of course, we do have very very low amounts of revenue coming in, so we have to really manage the costs. So anyway, that's just my little comment. Thanks.
And for those that don't know, we moved from a webinar format to an open meeting format. And tonight's meeting is beautiful proof that, because I've heard of other organizations where they've had that and they've had all kinds of problems and people talking over, and again, I just want to thank everyone, because it's everyone's very respectful and it's very much appreciated. All right, is there any other comments for Abdul? So Abdul would normally, he's the one that will move for the financials as reported to be accepted. Do I have a seconder? Please. Mark's hand is up, so Mark is our seconder. Any discussion, further discussion? If anyone opposed, that's the easiest. Put your hand up, please. Okay, I will say that they're accepted. Thank you very much, Abdul.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, we're almost there. So, oh no, don't tell me. Oh, Brian, the next section is our elections. Brian, are you prepared to put your slides up?
Yes, I am.
Oh, good, because I thought I put them into my slide and I didn't. So I'm just going to stop sharing.
Okay.
So
Now,
Brian will be presenting. Now, just a comment.
Yeah.
So Brian, as the past president, is in charge of the elections and recruiting, and he's done a great job. Because the bylaws were approved, the positions that he was filling were based on the number of 9, the traditional number of 9 on council. We have up to 12 positions so in theory, if somebody wants to work on council, there are 3 more positions, and I would say they're going to be called councillor positions. And for now, they have exactly the same privileges and everything else on council. Actually, I'm not even going to worry about it. There's 3 more positions available should we get nominations from the floor for additional members to council. So this has been a great group, and I hope there's more people that will be willing to let their name stand. If you want to nominate somebody, that's great. Or if you want to have your name and then I will nominate you, I will do that. So just put that out there. And with that, I will turn it over to Brian, please.
hey, thank you, Dennis.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, so there you go. Okay, so this is what this is for the elections of 2022. I did get quite a number of nominees. Let's see if this is going to move forward. Okay, so that was the old councillors. So we have 4, but now we have 12 in total.
So
right,
Brian,
Dennis?
just before you move on, Michelle had her hand up. I'm sorry. I don't mean to cut you off. I just want to make sure, see if she had something she needed to say for the election.
Yeah, what are these positions? They just seem nebulous, so.
They're all for councillor.
Yeah.
So what does a counselor do? I mean, yeah, I read the bylaws, but still.
Oh, if everybody's okay, Brian, I'm sorry, I'll just give a quick talk about how council has been working. So as a counselor, I'm not going to worry about names right now, but the counselor is a general member of council. So the expectation for the counselor is that you attend the meetings. Last year, we had the council meeting was pretty much monthly. And there are some subcommittees. And if you're willing to work in certain areas, like Tara last year was really interested in working on light pollution, and she started working in that area. So if there's an area you have a special interest in, you would work on. The bylaws have obviously become we've already agreed to that. So there's going to be a committee struck for that. So the idea is you would work in some of these areas on the different things. The strategic plan has been drafted, and the council's feeling is that for those items to move forward, the membership has to be involved. So there would be a councillor with a group of people that would look at taking that the next step, a committee. Let's call it a committee for the sake of argument. But a councillor would be on there to be able to report back to council what the committee is doing with that part of the strategic plan, as an example. And really what I'm laying out is my expectations of a councillor on the council for the next year. We have the financial committee. We have several other areas that could be looked at. Quite honestly, we have some people already working on council. There'll be a committee to look at I think we call it the operations manual or policy and procedures manual, which supports the bylaws. So there's some work to be done there. So those are the kind of things that would happen. You may want to assist. It's not, what I want to make clear, it's not council's job to do everything. It's council's job to enable the membership to have the programs and outreach that they want to do. So we work with the membership to try to bring that about. So does that answer your question?
I believe so. So from what I understand, there's one meeting a month.
Yes. Yes.
And what's the workload like? I assume it'll be less now that you've gone through all the bylaws and stuff, but I'm just wondering, on average, what is the workload from year to year for a counselor?
This past year would not be a good year to guess from, because it was, for instance,
that's
on
why I said
bylaws, I
years
think it was
before.
19, there was 19 additional meetings on the bylaws. So this past year. So if I was being honest, I would say you'd have, if let's say you took on that you wanted to work in the strategic, something out of the strategic plan, or light abatement, light pollution, you wanted to work on light pollution. So you're going to have a meeting, the council meeting, and then you're probably going to, at the very least, you're going to have to monitor the light pollution abatement committee on the RASC website or links. Did I say that right, Scott? The light abatement pollution committee.
Don't keep deferring.
You muted there, Scott. Yeah.
It's light pollution abatement.
Oh, there's Tara. Perfect. The person that was doing it. So if you want to do that, so like Tara was monitoring all that, and then she'd give a report to council, so he kind of knew what was going on, and that could be expanded out. Tara had some great ideas on where she wanted to take that. So that's an example. The additional work would be as much time as you want to volunteer towards that. Okay, does that help answer? I can't say it's going to be, because you may meet 3 times, because you're going to do the volunteer thing. You might meet 2 times a month with a group of people to make something happen. I don't know, but it would be more than the one meeting. At the very least, it's the one council meeting a month, and participate fully as much as we do. And of course, on the council, there's a lot of information gets shared by email as well. So does that help?
Yes, yes, it does. But
Okay,
my interests are more bylaws and policy. So
okay.
just to put
Well,
that
there's work to be done there, because as I mentioned, what we're calling the operations manual, that's policies and procedures that need to be fleshed out. Like, it started, but there's a lot of work to be done there as well. So, and there's some people already on council that are willing to work with that. Sorry, I'm just quickly looking here at the chat before I turn it back to Brian.
Jay has his hand up.
Okay, I'll go to Judy.
Or Judy, sorry.
Yeah, observatory committee is there, finance committee. And can everybody, if you're not speaking, check to make sure your mic is off or muted? Sorry, I have to write down a name here. Can't believe Tara. Tara says it right. It's as much of a time commitment as you want it to be, really. Thank you, Tara. And she says, and then I left for Vancouver. Oh, dirty rat. Okay, Judy, please. And then we'll go back to the elections.
Yeah, as far as how much work it takes to be on council, it's not just going to the meetings, it's actually responding to sort of fact check and advice, and should we go ahead and do this, or do you approve this? Because a lot of things happen between meetings. There's a lot of consultation, and council does that openly, so that we really do like people to respond to that in a very timely fashion. Sometimes there's 5 or 6 emails an evening, sometimes it's more. And if you're on a subcommittee then and you want it to work, then you need to meet. So Tara's right, but it can be a lot more than just a little bit more.
Thank you, Judy. All right, so Brian, back to you. I think we've answered the questions at this point.
Okay.
So go ahead.
All right, so here's the nominees for what people have responded back. Everyone has responded back to me, including Mark Sarakis. So I guess I have to take one person at a time, I believe.
No, what you need to do first is ask for, so we had, oh gosh, I've forgotten. We had four under the old system to be filled. There are 5
That's right.
nominations, but we have 3 other positions now on council.
Right.
So right now it could be by acclamation, but you need to ask for nominations from the floor. So in theory, there's still 2 positions that can be filled,
That's
without a formal election, just to clarify. And again, part of this is by tradition that it just moves to acclamation. So.
Okay, so we'll take it to the floor then. Is there any nominees on the floor?
So I've received 2. Michelle Voice has put her name forward, and Russell Brown has put his name forward.
Okay.
So that would fill out everything. That would give us a full 12-person council.
May I ask a question? It's Catherine Lee here.
Absolutely.
I'm just a little confused. I see Scott Young's name on there, and I know he was a member of the board and then stepped off.
Yeah, sometimes people have things that they have to be able to step away from, and I've stepped away from boards in the past too. So
Okay, he's asking now to go. So he's asking now to go back on.
Yeah, well, he was nominated and accepted the position. So that's what Brian said. Everybody that's on this list was nominated and was accepted the nomination. So
Okay,
yes.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. So Michelle had a quick question. All 12 members are all 12 members are voting members. Okay. So nothing right now changes because we're not incorporated. When we moved, if the council chooses to go to incorporation, the bylaws are written to allow for that. But regardless, all members, all elected councillors have the same vote. So just because Michelle was asking there, so just to clarify that. I've never asked this before, to be honest with you. I'm just going to be right up front, but I will ask it because it's posted to the chat and it's posted to everyone, so I don't mind saying it. So no, I'm reluctant, and if somebody really thinks I need to, now the question was, somebody asked if there's any conflicts of interest declared. I personally have never seen that asked. I'll be right up front. And so Brian's chairing this portion, but I would recommend to Brian that we would not ask that. And again, because of it's in the bylaws. It's in the bylaws?
I'm not seeing this. I can't because I'm sharing my screen.
Okay.
So.
All right.
Oh, Wait,
Yes, it is. Okay, Michelle says, yes, it is. So then, Brian,
So,
we
yeah,
do need to ask, sorry,
Dennis.
my mistake.
Sorry,
So-
Dennis, I know that there is a segment in the bylaws, that the new bylaws that we just ratified,
Yep,
that anyone going on council, when they're nominated, they're supposed to declare if there's any conflict or potential conflict to the nominating chairperson. So to Brian.
yeah.
right.
And then if they're elected,
Now I know what
they
you're
need
talking
to disclose their conflict to council. I think they also have to disclose under certain circumstances to the membership, but I can't remember for sure. It's
Yeah.
in the bylaws anyway.
about. Now that I know it, now I understand what you're saying. Sorry, I thought you meant what during the actual election, and that, no, that's right, to Brian. So the question is to Brian, did anybody declare conflict of interest when they were nominated or accepted? To your knowledge?
No.
But we couldn't do that because we didn't have those bylaws then.
That is true too. So I think, given that the bylaws were just approved and the elections were based on the other, I think for this meeting, we're not going to worry about that, unless there's a great conflict for that. 4 new messages. One moment, please. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to just return back to the elections. As I said, Brian, if you want to carry on. So you had 2 more nominations.
Yeah, Russell.
And I'm the one nominating them, and they both said that they would accept.
Okay, great.
Okay. So there's, yeah. Okay.
Okay, so there's any more nominations from the floor? So Scott, you have a hand up?
Yes, sir. So in the bylaws, we have that many number of positions, but they're not all the same position. There are
yes
up to 4 directors at large and up to 4 councillors at large. And until we're incorporated, we're right, it doesn't matter, but that is supposed to be, I think, elected. Maybe it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I was hoping, Scott, what I was hoping to do is with the new council, just so people understand for clarification, is when we get there and if we make the decision as a council to move forward on incorporation, at that point we could make that determination, right? But from a practical perspective, they're exactly equal on there. It's meant to be, just to refresh everybody's memory, it's meant to allow that if we had somebody who's underage, they could still be on council and have voting privileges, because if you incorporate and you submit the council, they have to meet certain criteria. And that was one, and in particular, that was the primary thing, because we had a member on council who was underage last year. So we wanted to be able to include them, keep that otherwise, or otherwise.
Okay, so if effectively all of these positions will be councillor positions until the difference matters. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Judy. Your hand's up, Judy.
Okay, she took it down.
Took it down. Just say I'll check the chat
got
here
it.
for you.
Okay.
Okay, carry on there, Brian. So Brian's called once.
Yeah, I call once. So it's Russell Brown, I believe. That's
Yeah, that's correct. I accept nomination.
okay, good, thanks. And Michelle Pallet or Boyce, sorry. I'm just writing their names down so I know. That's why. Okay, so
Yes,
going once.
correct.
Okay,
Well,
thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Russell. Okay, is there anyone else?
So Dennis Lyons will move that nominations from the floor cease. So he asked for a seconder.
That would be me.
No, you can't. You're chairing it.
I'll second it.
Okay, Gord Tulloch seconded. And I believe that it can just stop at that. for nominations, right? Yeah, Scott's nodding his head. Good. All right. So now, Brian, it's up to you. You can either call a vote or you can ask for it to be declared that that we're done.
Okay, well, let's declare it then. I think we can just move on.
So is there any opposed?
Is there, yes, that would be another good question. You want to oppose to any of these members to be on the council?
No. Opposed
No?
to not having an election.
No, opposed, okay, sorry.
So, and it being silent.
I don't see anything here.
So what you would do now is you would say everyone is elected by acclamation.
All right.
Okay?
Hey, great. Everyone has been elected by acclamation. Thank you for everyone for contributing to it. I'm glad we were able to fill out all the seats tonight. So great job. Okay, so we'll move on to the next part of the AGM.
Yeah, well, basically what it is I'll just open the floor to if there's any questions or business for rising from the floor, which is my clue for I would like a motion from somebody to say that asking the council to review the comments from tonight's meetings on the bylaws.
So moved. Can I say that?
Who said that?
Cliff.
Cliff?
Oh, second.
Yeah.
Cliff and Michelle seconded. Is there any discussion? Anybody opposed? Put your hand up, please. I'm looking quickly. The motion is carried. Is there any other business? There being no further business, I declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you very much. All right, so I believe, Brian, what time is, oh, it's 9:20. You know what?
You want to just move on and like forget about it?
I think that's what we'll do, but before we close down and open up or just continue on, I have to go for another phone call and meeting. I'll just give her, we've got, I would say 10 minutes. If anybody wants to make make any comments in the next 10 minutes, we can do that. And if there's no comments, then we'll just move to the social hour. So if you want to make a comment, please put your hand up. Michelle?
I have no comment.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, everybody wants to get to just socialize now. I don't blame you. So again, thank everyone. I thank you all tonight. First off, for being active in our center. I thank you all for working with us through all this discussion tonight. It was very, very well done. I appreciate all your time. Appreciate you all being very, very active in the organization. So, and I look forward to the next year and hopefully getting to see us all out somewhere under the dark skies. Have a great evening. Goodbye.